that voted for Anita Maunga Ntayebo.
That is laughable. Why would we pay when we have nominated them as SEC?
Every party has been represented in Uganda's parliament for 10 years. We only
by one MP, you yourself.
And my daughter, Susan.
Every Friday 9 p.m. it's One-on-One with Michael Jordan Lukomwa on UBC TV, inspiring Uganda.
It is a good morning again and welcome to this program of Pan-African Friday that comes your way every other Friday in the morning like this from the studios of UBC here in Kampala. And as usual, we have the usual panelists and with me today I have Ndugu Rugarama and also Ndugu Awich, who apparently have been flying all over the world, but today they are back in the studio with me. And I think I'll begin from which you're welcome to the program. The last 2 weeks, the other time I was told you were in Venezuela, and again you were back in Tanzania. What was happening in Venezuela?
I'm the Director for External Affairs. First of all, good morning viewers and good morning my colleagues. I'm the Director for External Affairs of NRM Party. And as you know, we are a revolutionary movement, we are a revolutionary party. So normally in a global struggle, there are forces of imperialism and fascism against progressive parties. So one of my core mandates is to ensure that we are not excluded from the democratic revolutionary parties. For example, we found in Germany a move where FDC, by then under leadership of Kizza Besigye, they had managed to exclude us as a democratic organization. Unfortunately for Dr. Besigye, he managed to put FDC, the only democratic organizations globally, in that kind of association. But unfortunately, because he was eventually ejected from FDC, now he has left FDC among the democratic. The party struggled to put in the democratic, ejected him, but the party remained there. Now we are excluded. So the thing is, because of, and that exclusion affects other governments' engagement with us. Because they go and look at the diary or the inventor said, but this party in power is not democratic, so how do we deal with them? So it is good and prudent that you interface so that you are not excluded. And that is why I go to Venezuela, to be with the progressive parties and assert our position that we are among the civilized progressive parties, so that we are not excluded. Same thing with CCM, same thing with whichever we go. So I met many progressive parties and we are okay with the world.
And then you had to postpone the inauguration of Maduro?
I attended it.
Okay.
I attended the inauguration of the president. Okay. In fact, it was the climax of it. And it was clear in the invitation that you're invited to attend it. And of course, progressive parties do that. And there's a second presidential inauguration and attended within a short time. I also attended that of RPF when President Kagame was inaugurated. They do it because they want, even them, they want to be associated to progressive parties like NRM.
Have we ever had the Maduro here?
No, I don't, not in my memory. But the Minister of Foreign Affairs was here and he met the president.
Okay. We shall be having him in the next.
And most importantly, we have the embassy and the ambassador.
The ambassador. Here. We have a fully-fledged embassy with us here. Not even lower than a full ambassador, but a full ambassador. and the Minister of Foreign Affairs was here, and I think the next stage was the two presidents to visit each other.
And the Ndugu Garama, we also sent in Tanzania?
Sorry?
The other time you disappeared, you also went to Tanzania?
Yes, I was in Dar es Salaam, but not to attend the CCM. If I had gotten wind of it, I would have get crushed. But I'm glad we were able represented by Comrade Awich Pola.
Okay, back to our topic today. We are looking at the new developments in the globe. President Trump sworn in as the 47th president of the United States of America. Then we need to look at what are the implications. What does Africa stand to benefit? Does Africa stand to lose anything? I think we'll begin with his, his swearing in as president, 47th president of the United States of America. And we'll have that video.
It's long. You want to show the whole of it?
We shall have him on screen when he's taking his oath as the 47th president of the United States of America. And also, from then, he has made a number of statements which will definitely influence the foreign policy of the United States of America. And that is going to be very cardinal in his leadership, because, you know, he spending 4 years out of the presidency, I think he has learned a few things which he must achieve now. Apparently, I'm not a Trumper, but I know that there are certain things that he has raised which resonates with the reasoning and the aspirations of many of the African countries and the African leaders. So I think it's going to be a chess of kind, because at one point you do think that he's going to do things that will work alongside the African values, but also at the same time he says America first. So what does that again mean to us? But we shall have to listen to his video at some point. But before we do that, look which what do you see in his what the relationship between his administration and Africa? Do you see us moving in a strategic world, in an economic relationship, or in a democratic interaction?
You know, ideally, sovereign states are equal. And in the United Nations, there are 193 states under UN, 193 countries, 193 governments. But as we know, is that customs and practices have evolved over time where you can't live in isolation. And that is why even the most mean, lean government, if I could say, if they are to form ministries, you will have finance, you will have foreign affairs, and you have defense. Those are the must that you have. Maybe internal affairs, police can be put with defense. Why is it this? Because our sovereignty undoubtedly is affected by our external relations. And I think that is why in the wisdom of President Museveni, I was also made the Director of External Affairs. Therefore, Trump's being in power, however much you want your sovereignty, it affects us. Like you said, in many aspects. But maybe I could now see, beginning with this word America first, how does it affect us? America first for me is good, because we should also stop living in a view that we depend on foreigners. Sure. America first means Trump is saying we first solve Americans' interest. By implication, this lessens an aggressive foreign policy, because they're more internal than external. And to some of us who had thought that America had become unnecessarily a police, a world police. If they now do to look at internal, then it is good for us. That means it limits their interest in Ukraine, it limits their interest in Middle East, and also other political interference in other countries, because for them they're saying America first. And that is why they are even threatening, or they have withdrawn their participation in environment, their global environment, their participation in World Health. They were the biggest funders of this organization. So I don't know whether China will step in, but they'll put it internally. But the other thing is which comes out quickly is views towards the gender aspect. The gender aspect has been a tool in American policy that many countries were not comfortable with.
Actually, it has been weaponized, the gender aspect.
Yes, so he says for the beginning that America will recognize male and female.
I think we can hold it there. He has that where himself is saying it. I think we shall hear it from the tape. First of all, that is the swearing in that we were talking about.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. This week, I will reinstate any service members who were unjustly expelled from our military for objecting to the COVID vaccine mandate.
So, that one now brings us to thinking. Africa, especially, we're talking about Uganda, we talked about the other time Ghana and Botswana. These countries were being demonized by the West, by America specifically, for the issues of gender. And they were saying that these other countries were abusing the human rights of the genders as we counted them. Now, what happens when Trump makes this statement? Is someone going to accuse Trump for also being anti-human right of those genders as listed? That was where you were coming to.
First of all, Trump comes with executive orders. Executive orders are powers given to presidents in a way that they should use it judiciously. You have seen even President Museveni gave executive orders. It has its legal limits, legal implication. I think even the president of Law Society has been using it.
I like
what is his name? Semokade has been
using executive powers.
Semokade has been using.
You see, he doesn't even know he's a
I'm a voter in law.
But he has been throwing out some of the members who have not been participating. Maybe he's one of them.
I'm a voter. I'm an advocate in my right. I went and voted in Munyonyo. But I did not think that banging table was the right approach. But anyway, he's our president, he's my president. So he has been using executive orders. Now, you were asking what it means, and I was started by saying he was using executive orders. But also, the policies that come from the mouth of the president, it can be followed by legislation, because laws are moved by the executive. Of course, they are private members' motion. But it can either now be moved, if it is agreed policy, like the president is saying, can followed by respective legislations. So what it means now is that the gender that they're seeing, male and female, I don't know how you counted, but there were gender like queer, that we have a gender called queer. You even have toilets which are mixed. We ordinarily know this toilet is male, this toilet is female, but they had reached a point where there's a combined toilet. And now the more implementable provision that Trump talks about is what he call it in programmatic areas, this gender in programmatic, and I think that's what you people call weaponization. For example, if you were employing 10 people, it was almost a must put 2 homosexuals, put 2 lesbians. And Trump is saying no.
We have only 2.
No, it is no longer a condition that for you even to apply for a license, show us which homosexual is in your organization. So it had become that, and Trump has said no. Therefore, the implication to us, and especially countries which had said that we don't agree to this culture, and as you know, in Uganda, any bill moved in parliament is opposed by opposition. But this bill was the only bill where all parties were united.
Sure, yeah.
And our friends in the West is saying no. I said, come on, even a bill to put food on the table, opposition will oppose. What is unique with this bill that everybody is saying we are united? And the same thing in Ghana. And I'm wondering our other friends, I'm hearing about Botswana, I'm not too sure about the facts, but I'm wondering about our other African brothers who had stood and looked at us like bad boys. Now Trump comes and we are the good boys. So I don't know what they will do. Because for us we are saying, if it is okay with you, it is not okay with us. Especially our bill which was protecting the children.
Exactly.
It was mainly children protection. At least that was the beginning. Therefore, the Trumps coming, the American first, in that it limits their urge for external interference.
Yeah.
And in practically, the weaponization of other policies which was affecting others is now coming down. And I feel you said you're not a Trumper, but for me, his actions sways me towards him. His action sways me towards him. This idea of withdrawing aid through, you said, why would we bother? Why don't we look at our own problems and get solutions? Who tells us we hold them a duty of care? Sure. Who says we hold them a duty of care? I know under international relations, many people don't know this. Under international relations, under international law actually, states commit themselves to give 0.7 of their GDP. That is a commitment under international law. And the only country that has surpassed it so far is Netherlands. America with its USAID, because it has a big money, they have just reached 0.5. But it looks big because it is proportional to the economy. In other words, what we get from international community is not a request. It is a commitment signed and ratified by countries to say, as we interface with the world, I will give 0.7.
Yeah, but again, the problem has been that even the aid had also been weaponized, because it is supposed to be an obligation under the international law arrangement, as you are saying, but now countries have tied it to a number of issues, some of them
they sign it. As you join UN, as a member state, as you sign international conventions, you have an obligation, and depends on the grading, like the developed countries. I remember a country in Europe was graduated as a first world country, and we met the ambassador in New York, and the man was crying. He's saying, why are you crying? You have graduated. He said, that means even my payment is up. At least if I was hiding down as underdeveloped countries, it is up. And therefore, depending on your GDP, that commitment is a must. Exactly. And you're not supposed to put it as a condition. So I want to make it clear to the viewers that under international law, all the developed countries are obligated to give developing countries 0.7% of their money. And that is why you find countries like Austrian aid, USAID, UK aid, whatever, they are operationalizing that provision, and they are supposed to do it unconditionally. So if they still want to behave, maintain international relations, they have to do that unconditional. But as you said, they conditionalize it.
Exactly. Ndugu Rugarama, karibu. Now, we are looking at Trump and the new administration. And of course, this is going to be a reflection of now how Africa, the leadership of Africa, and thank God, African countries, leaders who are not at the inauguration. And that's a statement. Of course, they have not been attending many of the inaugurations, except for Biden. Last time, a few of them went, but this time, no. And
no, can I say something? I am director for external affairs, so I'm privy to many of this information. American government issued a circular saying that for all countries, they were not going to invite foreign delegates. They said ambassadors in Washington will represent.
Yes.
And they said maybe at another state department may want to do their function. So I don't know whether it is only Africans, but the circular, the way I read that circular, they did not invite any foreign delegation.
A few I saw attended.
Maybe they came on their own, but I read the circular myself,
yeah,
mandating ambassadors in Washington. So my understanding of that circle was that even the British Prime Minister should have been represented by the ambassador. So which other foreign delegate was there?
We had, I think, I saw there 3 heads of government, which...
they get crushed, I think. I read the circular myself.
But I think Trump is also looking at people who have his back, who believe in his ideology, and I think I had only 3 who I saw there. Now, Ndugu Rugarama, what's your take on the new administration?
Thank you so much, and once again, good morning to our viewers, and for those we are meeting for the very first time in 2025, Happy New Year.
Sure.
This is quite an interesting topic, Comrade Mututa, in the sense that my views about the United States of America's governance are such that I do not have to look at what they do, what they say from the surface. For me, it really doesn't even matter whether they called anybody from the African continent. I saw one of the pastors, the leading pastor,
the Nigerian
from
pastor.
Nigeria.
Yeah.
It's a huge one. It's a huge one because I think at every sitting, at any one given sitting, he's in almost near 1 million people. You can imagine that. And probably we have to dig and find out as to why. He is one of the 3, I think, that was invited from the African continent by Trump inauguration committee. But why am I saying that it does? I'm not impressed by who is and who is not invited by the presidents of America. When America says, like the Trump administration, that America first, there is a temptation when you analyze from the surface, just that actually America is more interested in looking at the internal affairs. They do not care about what happens to their interests elsewhere. My take is different. How? I will tell you that when America says, Trump, for that matter, says America first, it does not mean that they are not going to do as they wanted to do to continue to have Israel as its satellite state doing the bidding of United States of America in the Middle East. No, it doesn't mean that. On the contrary, you realize that United States of America will continue emphasizing her status in the Middle East through arming the state of Israel and making sure that the rest of the countries which they consider a danger to the survival of Israel in the Middle East will be dealt with. And I think that Trump has already made his mark in as far as the survival and flourishing of Israel in the Middle East is concerned. Two, I am not persuaded by this America First. To me, it is a big sounding gong for no good reason. Why? If, for instance, America was not interested in the affairs of the rest of the world, there was no need immediately after Biden had removed Cuba from the list of the states of that presumed to be terrorists. Immediately, Trump signed the executive order reinstating Cuba as a terrorist state. You can imagine. I don't think it even took, because we were here trying to share, do a little bit of celebrating with the ambassador and our colleagues from ECAP in Havana and the other friends of Cuba on the African continent. But I warned my colleagues, I said, whatever you are celebrating about, be aware that Trump is coming and is like a cat in the cupboard. We don't know the moment the cupboard is opened, the direction in which the cat is going to jump. And indeed, what happened is that Trump resigned Cuba as a terrorist state. You see, don't confuse the two. Cuba, for more than 60 years, if my mathematics is correct, has been taken, blockaded economically by America. Now, the economic blockade is different from being listed as a terrorist state.
Sure.
Being listed as a terrorist state is another gear now, worse than being, because in a manner of speaking, Cuba had more or less coped with living with the economic blockade. They were doing all in their power. Their education levels had not shrunk. Of course, the economic blockade was affecting Cuba, no doubt. It is still affecting. But they had managed. When you look at their health systems, their education systems, they were doing very well. Now, the reintroduction, if it is America First, and your interest is the activities within America, what business do you have resigning executive order, relisting Cuba as a terrorist state? Now, that's why I'm saying that take with a pinch of salt what the American presidents say and later on what they do. You remember?
Especially when it comes to Trump.
You see?
Yeah.
Even these ones, by the way, who seem not to be talking the way Trump talks, I can assure you that they will say one thing and rest assured they will be doing quite another. Now, if they are Trump's administration is going to stop, for instance, the Ukrainian war, then it means America is the one that started the Ukrainian war. In one way or another, America is responsible for what is happening between Ukraine and Russia. That notwithstanding, what else do I read in this inaugural? There are many things. Because if we didn't have time to pray the entire thing. But Trump is already complaining about the Panama Canal. He says we gave it back to Panama, but we didn't give it to China. Do you know what that means? That was in his inaugural speech. Where are we headed therefore? And he goes ahead to say, we are taking it back. Mark that.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, the American policy, the American foreign policy, substantively, does not shift simply because of the Republican or a Democrat as a president in the White House. There will always be, the middle line here is that the so-called American dream. Because listening, by the way, to the inaugural speech of President Trump, you would think that Biden was a mistake, probably, to the administration or to the people of America. Because almost everything that Trump said in his inaugural speech was that we have been in hell. Now we are getting out of hell, and this is what I'm going to do. But watch the space. There is these executive orders you see. I can assure you at the end of the day, like now the policy, the trade policy. He talked about the trade policy.
Of course, yeah.
He talked about creation of the center, is it, of excellence. He talked about introduction of tariffs and taxes to the foreign countries.
External revenue.
And not, of course, I would understand him himself being a businessman and having been taxed. He talked about the judiciary, the weaponization of the judiciary, of course, and he says that the administration, the Biden administration, had weaponized the judiciary. Probably he's right, of course, given his circumstances. You know where he's coming from. But say at the end of the day, anyhow, the American administration, majority of the people who do not choose to be weekend thinkers understand that the American administration has always and will always want to do whatever they do, internal or external, for purposes of keeping their dominance.
And for me, as we come to Ndugu Awich, I think I have, like I've said a number of times, I have no problem with that. If a country can be able to maintain itself and maintain their aspiration as a dominant country, fine. But
let us see if they are going to revise, by the way, for instance, some of the things that the Biden administration had done to countries like Uganda. You remember the AGOA, simply because of our policy on our registration of the gender.
For me, I think Trump is not going to do a lot, much in progress or otherwise for Africa, unless the Africans themselves prove a point that they are also a muscle. Without that, and which I don't see happening in the nearby future, I think Africa will still remain on the receiving end. And of course, I hope he also doesn't collect them again and put them on the bus to go and have a handshake with him like it's always done. I hope this time Africa will have, with the new leadership there, maybe they will have a new thinking as in terms of a country, as all Africa put together. But that's
and besides, you saw what he did with the Hispanics and the black community.
Yes.
What the black community actually gave him a block vote, and he recognized them in his inaugural speech. But you wait, domestically, you wait as to the policy, the health insurance policy, the education policies, the housing policies in America. Wait and see during the tenure, the 4 years, as to whether we shall have something substantially changing in favor of those indicators that I have pointed out in favor of the black community.
I don't think that's
Let's wait and see.
Ndugu Awich, now when you look at this, the new administration in the U.S., but also you weigh it against the aspirations of the Africans. First of all, we part of the problems we're having on the continent is the the lack of the cementing, even of the blocks of the African blocks of east, of west, of south, and the rest. Do you think with the Trump coming onto leadership, this could help us to solidify the leadership in Africa, or do you, having been in the external and being in the external administration of the NRM party, what do you think happening at a Pan-African scale?
Okay, thank you so much. I'll answer that, but I first want to make comment on what Comrade said. I'll come to cementing ourselves. First of all, I think we have to be clear about the interpretation of America first. No doubt that we can say if it is America first, then they will not do anything external. What it simply means is that they will do a lot of external, but in their best interest.
Including taxation, you know, he said it.
Yes, America first doesn't mean they're closing their borders and doing things in America. America first means every external thing that we do in our best interest.
Which to me is okay.
Yes, so that is what it means.
Which they have always done.
Yes,
exactly.
So I don't want me to be understood. I don't want me to be understood by saying America first means going back internal. No, America first means, for example, he talked about spending money on for foreign defense when we don't have it in our own defense. Meaning, for example, if you said we are putting billions in Ukraine when we are not putting it in our defense. That's what he's saying. So, as you said about starting, if they stop, then it means he started it. Yes, it is America which started the war in Ukraine. For the mere reason that Russia was saying, Canada is in your north. Suppose we bring weapons in Canada and surround you. What would you say?
Exactly.
So NATO went and put arms in Ukraine. And Russia is saying, come on. So that amounted to, that is actually was the start of the war. So there's no doubt about that. And now Trump is saying, put money in other foreign defense when we don't have. So that is how it will, it will go. Yep. So the interpretation of America first is not to say America will not act. For example, the petroleum thing of Venezuela. Trump is saying he wants it. Does it mean he will stop it? He wants it. To the extent that America was even picking Venezuelan crude oil and making a tarmac on the street. Do you know, and processed oil. You pick it from the mining, go and make tarmac. Because Venezuela has good quality oil that even at this amount of drilling, like you drill like Saudi Arabia, it would still take 300 years.
Exactly.
So they're doing it. So America first means interfering outside because of what? Take for example Canada. It appears crazy, but he had mentioned, I want Panama, I want Canada, 51st state, I want Iceland. He wants 3 countries. Does it mean this is not America first? For them, they're saying America first because he is doing external in Americans' best interest. I ask a UK citizen in Venezuela, what will the king do? Because Canada and Australia has been under the queen, under the king. Will they let America take Canada? He said, now what do we do? The poor UK citizen tell me, what do we do? But Canada is saying they don't want. Because at this age and era, you are still talking of conquering countries.
Expansion.
3,
yes.
Panama, Canada, Iceland. 3. So all this will continue, but in their best interest. I think I've explained that now. Yeah. To our cementing, we should not lose a single gear on this. If we are talking of East African region, if we are talking of Africa as a continent, in fact, we still should go forward for the new world order. The new world order in that we are now going for BRICS. Uganda has joined. Now, BRICS simply means the crux of the matter is, do you control world economy? Do we leave it in the monopoly of one person? Because what do you mean by controlling world economy? I have said here or somewhere again that Cuba that they are demonizing as terrorists. They picked an issue where Cuba was negotiating a peace deal to negotiate the rebels in Colombia. When they saw that Cuban negotiation was succeeding and Cuba was bringing peace in Colombia, they planted a terrorist attack, which had nothing to do with Cuba. Now America is saying that attack was Cuban plan. Cuba said, oh, even those who did it claimed they did it. Just because they didn't want Cuba to claim a prestige that they brought peace by negotiation in Colombia. And that is why they put them back in the terrorist thing. Now, France, for example, or German, or Netherlands, can say, America, you have problems with Cuba, not us. So we are taking goods to Cuba by ship. America says, if you take it, they transfer money. You know, do you know that even if you go with your ATM in Garden City to withdraw from Barclays Bank when your account is in Stanbic, do you know that it is cleared from America?
Exactly. Not only cleared, but also you pay.
It is cleared and you pay tax. So now, if a German comes to Cuba and they want to do with Cuba saying we are not in your quarrel, that payment is
cut.
They block that payment. So that's why we are still saying, in your cementing of relationship, I am saying we should not leave asleep because Trump is saying he's dealing with internal. Like Rugarama said, that is deceptive. The philosophical ground standing of American system will remain the same. So we should continue to engage Maugia for the East Africa, for the BRICS, so that this world monopoly, where I go to Garden City and my card to withdraw money from Barclays Bank, when instead of Stanbic, it has to be cleared by America, should stop. And that's what BRICS is working for. So please, cementing our relationship, we should not lose any sleep. If anything, we should engage more gear up to a global level. Because whatever happens is just the philosophical stand of American system remains the same.
Do we look at the current and the incoming leadership at the African Union being able to drive us to this end?
Who is now the incoming?
Ene will come, but I believe
because we would need, because if we're doing that, I thought we needed to assess on personality level. But if it is the same thing,
Baba will take this.
If it is, you know, African Union, when you're talking about it, you're talking at the level of the Commission, and of course, because not all African leaders would stand firm. For example, like President Museveni. President Museveni has decided to stand firm, even by mere assenting to Anti-Homosexuality Act.
Was a tough
People thought he would refuse to assent. How many African presidents can assent that my parliament has passed a law against homosexuality, and he puts his signature? So if you're talking of African incoming leadership, that's why I wanted to know who, because it depends on personality now. If you have strong personality taking oath of office there, then you will determine it like that. If not, the one here will pass in limbo. But even at the commission, how strong is the commission? Still it goes to personality. But we would hope that since they take collective decision at African heads of states, then we have strong voices like that of Museveni, like that of Ghana, who could, at a test of time, they said, before Museveni signed this thing, I'm sure there are phone calls, even from White House.
Yes.
Don't sign. But the son of Kaguta says, what are you talking about? Bring, I put my signature. So how many of those leaders are there? When you pass a law, not interest of somebody, you pass a popular law, which is uniparty, a law which all parties share their differences, these parties which you can even bring food on the table and they oppose, but on this one they said, we are together. And there's a phone call from White House, and the son of Kaguta said, you put his phone down and said, I'm signing. So how many of those do you have an African Union?
Yeah, because we have President, last time we were talking here with Nduguru Garama, one gets a call and say, you know, you are going to be the next member of NATO, and so you better try to work with us. Seriously, of course, even if you became a NATO member a NATO member as an African head of state or an African country, what does that has to do with your people back at home having, you know, posho or Sukuma week on the table that day? But let's look at it this way. Don't we also see an opportunity here where Trump thinks that they should withdraw some of the funding to the African countries in terms of foreign funding? Doesn't Africa have an opportunity here, Nduguru Garama?
Once again, I go back to what I started with. Whatever decision comes from the American leadership, like, you know, I normally don't watch these films, but when I was watching a film called Roots, there was a head of the training camp, and the training camp receives this boy who later on is captured and is named Tombi, who actually, in fairness, is Kinta Kunte. But slightly before that, he comes running and he reports to the camp that he had seen the white man. The head of the training camp looks at everybody, the youth there he was training, and he says, "Did you hear that? Kinta Kunte saw the white man."
Was the head of training a black man?
Yes. The white man is here. Now, I can assure you that the American presence is very much on the African continent. And in whatever we do, whatever we say, there has got to be a deliberate efforts on our part. As you are asking, and I think Ndugu Upora was also equally asking, who therefore is coming in as the chairperson of the commission? All indicators are, I don't want to preempt anything, that Baba, the Kenyan senior statesman, will take up the leadership. But what happens is that we need the kind of leadership, like Pora is saying. Probably there are those who will disagree with him at a good number, I want to believe, especially on the African continent, will agree with him about the tenacity of President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. But of course, when you bring it and organize it here, then you will have all sorts of people, the opposition and what have you. I don't want to go into that. But we all know the truth, that we need strong personalities in some of these institutions. You were here, Comrade Mtuta, and I want to believe my colleague, Senior Comrade Pora, when our former chairperson of the commission admitted Israel as an observer at the African Union, and yet that was a decision of the heads of state. He didn't consult them. The next sitting, Israel was there, and members protested. They said, this can't happen. You remember that scuffle? They dragged them out. They said there is not going to be any sitting here if these people from the state of Israel are with us, who admitted them and who authorized that. Yeah, so at the end of the day, the backbone that we are talking about here is what is going to give us the nerve to be able to accept or to reject some of these things. What happens, therefore, is that the coming in of Donald Trump against what we have been witnessing as Africa, especially by the American politicians, ranging from all manner of sanctions, simply because of even our internal democracies, which is a clear sign of the hypocrisy that has always been obtaining in America and Western Europe. We require that Africans, therefore, and this is, I think, what you are talking about, Africans, therefore, must prove a point. We must have a stand, even if that stand costs us, because there will always be a cost. There is nothing that one can achieve without paying a price.
Yeah, because why we say so, the American foreign policy, okay, with the people coming in may have a few alterations here and there, but I think it will never change. It will always remain. It is Trump who is saying America first, but it has always been America first.
It is just the degree, the intensity with which one president sitting in the Oval Office carries out the so-called foreign policy.
Exactly.
Here there was, you remember, Barack Obama. For the very first time, it was during the time of Barack Obama's second, I think, presidency, that we had a base, the American base in Ghana. Yes, it was, I don't know the spirit of Kwame Nkrumah. It must be turning. It was created during Barack Obama's time. You hear the Americas, this South America, the chaos in Haiti. I may go on and on, the situation in Venezuela, what is happening. And there is this pretense, by the way, and this is where an African man must carefully look at what is happening. We must be everyday students of global strategic studies. There is this pretense by our brothers. I don't care if they consider us brothers or not, but from the God's creation, I want to believe. For me, my understanding is that they are brothers and sisters. But if they think we are not, that's their business. I'm really not bothered.
You are still already menace.
You see, at the end of the day, when you look at what the American leadership does, is that they create a cover that actually Africa doesn't matter. And you find intellectuals, intellectuals, we call ourselves intellectuals, you know, because we have gone to Makerere, and it becomes worse when you go to some of their universities. You know, you are in one of European universities or American university for a master's, and when you go for a PhD from there, you become a demigod. So that you start philosophizing that you see Africa at the end of the day, what do you bring to the table? That's the argument. Sure. That there is nothing Africa brings to the global table. I disagree. I tell you, I am not a Jewish prophet, but I tell you this, that what goes behind the curtains, the amount of rooting, not trade, the amount of rooting, that, for instance, the American conglomerates have on the African continent and everywhere, be it Angola, be it Mozambique, be it, you see the chaos in Mozambique now?
Yeah, but
look at what is bringing the chaos.
Even in his inaugural speech, I think President Trump talked about it, getting from others and enriching us.
You see, he's very open about it.
Exactly.
You go to DRC, the never-ending oars, you look at the companies which are carrying out the routing, not trading, routing. And then you say, but you say, why don't you govern? And indeed, that's why I respect my senior brother,
I think
Professor Sanchez. Yes, let me conclude with this one very quickly. Professor Sanchez says that, you see, Europe and America will keep telling Africa and other less developed economies, why are you not governing properly? When in actual sense, we are the reason as to why you cannot govern properly.
That's true. Ndugu, I wish just we summarize, say our time is up almost.
What do I do?
Yeah, your last take on this, the
last
African leadership, especially with the Trump coming in office.
The African leadership, I make that, but I want to make a brief comment on what came out of Rugarama's submission. About African leaders being told you'll be a member of NATO, I really don't know what they're up to, because the NATO membership means if you are attacked, NATO will protect you. But I wonder why they still think in the center of Africa they expect attack from them.
Exactly.
If anything, we need ourselves together for a foreign attack, maybe from NATO that they think
exactly.
will protect them. Instead of being worried about the attack from NATO, that will, they want the protection. So it's really divide and rule. And then Rugarama talks about the roots, the film. Since we are talking about Pan-African, I encourage all Pan-African viewers to look at The Roots. The Roots is a film which was indicating the capture of slaves to Americas. It is interesting that even when the slaves were captured in the ship, can you imagine a reverend would come and baptize you?
Exactly.
So that by the time you reach America, you're already Peter, John, Alex. But goodness sake, if you are God's people and you are baptizing me in the name of Jesus, then why are you taking me as slave?
The ship Even the ship itself was Jesus, was named Jesus.
You are taking me as slave, and in the ship you baptize me to John, Alex. They would dump African names, of course. That's why you hear names like Michael Jackson, Michael and Jackson. So the slaves were baptized in the ship. So those who watch Roots, I mean Pan-Africans should watch that. The other thing is, you see, Rukarama, even if you talk about crude looting, if you look at the trade so far, the amount of Land Rover, the coffee that would take to buy a Land Rover, in the past would say like 5 tons of coffee. Now it is 50 tons of coffee to buy the same Land Rover. So even without looting, the North-South trade imbalance is so unfair. Exactly. Because if they ask you for the illegality, you may find difficulty in proving. But how about the one we can prove?
Sure. We'll continue from there next time, because also we'll look at the influence of the winning influence of America on African continent, the issues of Russia, issues of China coming in Africa, and see where Africa is now heading. And we thank you so much for the program today. I will thank you so much, gentlemen, for the contribution, and I thank the team that has been behind the production of this program. Until next week on Friday, when we shall be back with more discussion about the African continent, the African issues, and the African interest in the global dynamics. We thank you and wish you the best of the weekend as we go into the weekend today. Have the best and take care. Thank you.